I think we all go through universal experiences in life, and one of those universal experiences is when something happens and we look up in the sky, figuratively or quite frankly just directly do so, or literally, and we ask God why. Why did this happen? Now there's a spectrum to this, though, if you think about it, because on the most intense side of the spectrum, it's a loss of a loved one tragically and those kind of experiences. But on maybe towards the middle or to the other side, let's say, if there is such a spectrum, is, why, Lord, didn't I get that job? Or why didn't I get that promotion? Or why didn't this happen the way that I had pictured it? And, you can come up with the situation on your own because you've been there. I think I've probably told you many times of the situation that we had as a church looking for a facility many years ago. Long story short, God said no. I threw a little bit of a tantrum spiritually there. And after we said no, it was just a couple months later and that building burnt down. I didn't know the future, and I didn't know what God was going to bring about. And I don't think God started that fire, but He certainly knew it was going to happen. And He protected us from that. Now, at the same time, if we were to truly be honest with ourselves, we could also point to times where we did figure out the reason why God said no, or wait, or what have you, right? We have those questions a lot. The writer of Ecclesiastes is known as the teacher, or there are so many different things that we could glean from this book. There's like 100 things going on in my mind. There are times where it talks about situations in our lives and how we put so much emotional and physical weight upon them, and they're just a vapor. They're just here and gone. They're in the moment they might seem pretty big, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not. And that's hard to say to someone if they're struggling with something in the moment. So probably don't, But this particular passage I think is really interesting. And I'm going to read it in a New Living Translation because I think it's such a beautiful way to think about the things that God has said no to or wait. So Ecclesiastes chapter 11 verse 5 says this: "Just as you cannot understand the path of the wind or the mystery of a tiny baby growing in its mother's womb, so you cannot understand the activity of God who does all things." Think about the baby analogy for a moment. We are waiting, and the lady is going through such pain and agony and discomfort, and some good days, some bad days. And if you didn't know anything about human biology, you'd be thinking, why is this happening? Right? You can't physically see the baby unless there's something that happens with a surgery or a 4D imagery. But even then, you can't really see the baby, But then, 9 months later, all of a sudden we get this wonderful gift. And there's some pain and some suffering involved, let's just be honest. But in the moment of that pain, it just seems like there's just no hope. So let's move away from the baby analogy, right? And actually, let's combine it with this, and that is that there are times in our lives in which we do go through something. God says no, God says wait, God says not yet, God says all kinds of things, and we shake our fists, but we find out later that there is a blessing around the corner. God was preparing us in our hearts and maturing us to receive something even greater than what we had prayed for. This happens all the time. We have to admit this to ourselves. We can go two ways with this. We can search for those blessings and those instances in which God is growing us, or we can spend so much time and energy dwelling on that which he has said no to. I think I want to go with the first. I think I want to go with those times in which God has said no, or maybe, or wait, or just hold on a minute, because there's something else coming, or I want to be able to focus on those things, because when I do, it increases my faith, and I think, oh, that's why, duh, why didn't I think so? But we all know people who are the opposite, who for years of their lives they dwell on the fact God did not answer this prayer the way that I wanted him to, and some people even fall away from the faith because of it. I think today my encouragement for you is to look for those times in which God has blessed you unexpectedly. And maybe write it down. Maybe write it down so you can remember it. Maybe write it down so others can read it. But that will be definitely a good thing to keep in mind and to record those things that God has done. I hope you have a great week.